trying to say libertarians support that stuff when communists have done stuff like...
Right, you don't know anything. You're clearly talking out your butt once again, proving you just making this up as you go along.
So a corporation is a legal body, right, that is there to make a profit.
No, that's businesses in general. All businesses exist to make a profit. You don't know what a corporation is. We went over this in the last video. A corporation is a business model that is supported by private investors who buy into the company in the form of stock. And as such, they assume all risk and liability for the company, whether it succeeds or fails. If it does well, they will make a profit. If it does poorly, they lose money on it. You also have a sole proprietorship in which a business is owned by a single individual. You have a partnership where it is owned by two individuals. And it doesn't matter if you're running a sole proprietorship, a partnership, or a corporation. If you are starting one, you have to register an LLC so the government can tax you. So contrary to where you went with this, businesses are taxed.
And capitalism. Have you seen the mines in Africa?
What about it? What aboutism? You think capitalist nations are the only ones who have created landmines? You think capitalist nations are the only ones who pollute the environment? China far outpaces the US and Europe in terms of pollution, completely dwarfing both. And it is run by the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. No matter what you want to believe, the facts are not on your side. Y'all are producing more pollutants and doing more harm to the ecosystem than capitalism. Whether you want to accept it or not is irrelevant.
Now you say that people complain in countries where there is universal health care. Of course there's going to be complaints.
Yeah, I have 30,000 followers on this app. And you think I don't know people in other countries who live under those systems and have complained about them to me? And all you can say, yeah, of course they're going to complain because it's not a perfect system. Nobody in this conversation has argued that poor people shouldn't have access to health care. What I did point out is that socialized health care isn't the fix-all people like you make it out to be. I also pointed out that the reason cost of healthcare is so high in the United States has everything to do with government intervening in the marketplace and not free market capitalism. And as such, you do not need socialism to fix the healthcare problems in the United States. There are free market alternatives. For Christ's sakes, I don't have access to healthcare. I'm not begging the government to be this divine savior and rescue me from a life of poverty. I don't trust them to do it. So stop with this guilt trip monologue. You're gonna go nowhere with me.
Because corporations manipulate the government.
Yes. So take away power from the government and the corporations will also be powerless. They don't do all this stuff on their own. They are using the government to prop themselves out. You have already admitted that the corporations do not rule on their own. They rule by coercing and bribing the government. If you get the government out of healthcare and return that power back to the people, who are the corporations going to bribe? Who's going to bail these corporations out when they go under? Nobody. They'll just go out of business.
Well, the streets and this and that, the city's blue, but the state is red, and it's the city's blah, 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 blah.
If you're going to try to quote me, at least quote me accurately. The city blah, 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 just say you didn't pay attention and actually aren't listening to have a civil conversation. My point was that the federal, state, and local government are all responsible for completely different things. Each of these levels of government have completely different responsibilities. The state is not responsible for running every city within the state's police department. So if you live in a blue city with a very corrupt police department, the blame for the corruption falls on the city, not the state. And you can talk about getting funding from the federal government. Where does the federal government get its fundings? Oh yeah, it steals it from the workers in the form of income tax. Sorry if I believe somebody like me who lives paycheck to paycheck shouldn't have to pay out the ass to start a business because the government wants its fair share. Let me ask you this, what is your fair share of somebody else's hard work? The free market gave me a payment plan on a food truck I couldn't afford out of pocket. The state is charging me an arm and a leg to tell me that my brand new food truck isn't clean enough or up to code. In a capitalist society, somebody who works for a living and lives paycheck to paycheck would be able to start a small business and run it however they see fit without the government intervening and charging them an arm and a leg just to operate.
Politicians that will do the bidding of the people. But no. In the case of red states like Louisiana,
Once again, proving that socialists are just diet Democrats and don't actually understand politics whatsoever. They just hate the Republicans more. Republicans are red, Democrats are blue, neither major party gives a crap about me or you. Said it once, I'll say it again, I'll say it until it gets through your thick skull. Democrats do the exact same thing. They embezzle money all the time. They manipulate the stock market for profit all the time. That's how Nancy Pelosi, a representative from California, San Francisco nonetheless, became a millionaire. She didn't do it in politics alone. Then there's Kamala Harris, who was a prosecutor out of San Francisco, who withheld evidence that would have exonerated an inmate on death row. Yeah, that's a real good look for blue states, isn't it? Totally different from the red states. You're just as bad, if not worse in many situations. And like I told you in the last video, I'm not just repeating what I hear on Fox News, which is another assumption you probably have about me. Don't watch Fox News, don't watch cable news at all. But I have actually been to San Francisco, and Oakland, and Sacramento, and St. Louis Obispo, because I have family in California, you dense fuck. Cut the high and mighty crap about being from a red state, blue state. You're both equally worthless as far as I'm concerned. I swear, socialists are really just diet Democrats.
show me a libertarian solution for education.
See, if you would pay attention instead of hearing blah, 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 you would have actually had your answer from the first video, so I'll just play it for you.
The state control of education only gave them the authority to red zone certain minority groups into lower income schools. Happens all the time in the very blue city of Baton Rouge. But there's also a lot of private charter schools that are sponsored by local historically black universities that are doing wonders for marginalized communities.
So call me when you learn the skill of paying attention to what your political opponents are actually saying and arguing for. You are seriously trying to debunk concrete evidence with hypothetical scenarios.
Born in a poor household would have to work since maybe 4, 5, 6 to help support the family instead of going to school.
You know, for somebody who hates corporations and monopoly, man, you sure do defend the education system that was designed by the biggest one of all. John Rockefeller said it himself. He wanted a nation of workers, not thinkers. Y'all complain that our education system is outdated and it was meant to create blind workers, but you don't want to fix the problem. Can't just throw money at the education system and think it's going to get better. It's not. They're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again as long as you're giving them money to do it. More importantly, there are all kinds of online learning platforms like Wondrium, the Great Courses Plus, Skillshare, Brilliant, that have made higher learning accessible through a smartphone. Smartphones that exist because of capitalism and innovation. I might not be able to get a degree through any of this, but I can learn the material, and employers at this point don't really care if you're educated as long as you know what you're doing and can make them a buck. Once again, capitalism proving it does a better job of providing education to the needy than socialism.
What is your libertarian solution for healthcare?
I already told you, abolish certificate of need laws that restrict the number of hospitals that can be built in a given area. Also, get rid of patent laws that allow pharmaceutical companies to gain a monopoly on any medication they invent. That way, other competitors can jump in and start selling it themselves at a discounted rate. That drives the price down. Pay attention. Keep up. Don't just care. Blah, 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 blah.
Company can create it, can manufacture it, even though they didn't invest any money in the development of that drug.
I thought socialists were in favor of collective ownership anyway. I thought you were against pharmaceutical companies making excessive profit. Which is it? Sorry for believing that the sale and distribution of life-saving medication should be public domain.
Explain. I would like you to give me in detail actual solution for actual problem.
I already did multiple times, and it's become obvious that you're not going to pay attention because all you hear is blah, 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 blah. You're not listening to educate yourself. You're just listening to tell the other guy they're wrong, but you cannot prove that we're wrong. All you're doing at this point is just giving a long list of whataboutisms, and it just proves that you're just going to keep moving the goalposts no matter what evidence is presented in front of you to debunk your position. Call me when you learn how to pay attention and use critical thinking instead of just repeating sketchy things you heard on the internet.